Has Disney finally killed the Star Wars franchise? This quote from one of the actors of The Acolyte could be the final nail in the coffin. This could potentially destroy the Star Wars franchise and erode all trust and goodwill that the fans have toward Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, and of course, Lucasfilm. Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast, where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell and consider becoming a channel member. All right, it's true, all of it. I think that this will be the nail in the coffin where the only people who remain watching Star Wars, at least the newer Disney stuff, is going to be guys like me who review it, or gals who like to review it, or just Disney shills who are holding on. This happened as the premiere for the Harvey Weinstein, his former assistant, Leslie Headland, is getting ready for the release of the show she produced, Star Wars The Acolyte. And this comes from Charlie Barnett, who plays one of the characters in The Acolyte. This is That Part Place reporting. Star Wars The Acolyte actor Charlie Barnett attempted to paint himself as a Star Wars fan, but came across looking completely ignorant about the franchise by claiming that Anakin Skywalker blew up the Death Star. In an interview with the Nerds of Color, Barnett's first comments were to claim that Jedi had not been featured in recent Disney Star Wars films and shows, despite them being prominently featured in the most recent series, Ahsoka, as well as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke Skywalker is also featured in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, as well as the second season of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. He said one of the things that was most terrifying is stepping into that position of Jedi. We haven't seen a lot of Jedi in the last couple of films or even TV shows that have been coming out. So returning to that storyline and reinventing it was daunting because the Jedi are these, Next, he claimed that the Star Wars films he saw portrayed the Jedi as godlike beings. He said, and from where I was growing up from the films that I was seeing, they were better than they could be. They were the utmost and could do nothing wrong. It was kind of godlike nature. So getting to see more of the personality, seeing a little deeper root into them was terrifying. Like, how are we going to explore outlets of a story of people we've known so much about and do it in the ways that people love to hear about them or see them? It's unclear what films he watched, but the Jedi are clearly never portrayed as godlike beings in any of the 6 films that George Lucas helmed. In the original trilogy, the Jedi have been clearly driven into exile and defeated by the Empire. In fact, Obi-Wan even informs Luke Skywalker that his father was killed by Darth Vader. Obviously, it would later be revealed that his father was consumed by the dark side and became Darth Vader. In the prequels, it's very obvious that the Jedi could do a lot of wrong. Qui-Gon expresses this to Obi-Wan repeatedly in The Phantom Menace. He is also killed by Darth Maul at the end of the film. Yoda also makes it clear that the dark side has clouded his vision. Then in Revenge of the Sith, it's very clear the Jedi are not powerful godlike beings, as they are defeated by the machinations of the Empire, which involve their own clone troopers gunning many of them down. Despite trying to paint himself as a fan, Barnett clearly does not know what he is talking about. But later in the interview, he made an even greater faux pas. He declared that Anakin Skywalker destroyed the Death Star. When asked about his character's relationship to good and evil in the show, Barnett answered that in part, this good and bad element, it's so dependent on your experience. No, it's not your history. No, it's not your parents. No, it's not your friends. No, it's not. Like, so much bleeds into that, and that's what makes it, why Palpatine would be committed to the direction that he is committed to as bad and or good, however you view it. I personally will see it as bad, but a lot of people would see the sides are like, well, Anakin just blew up a whole Death Star. How many people died on that? Is that not bad? I find that part of Star Wars really human and best at. Now, if this had just been a one-time thing where he kind of made this faux pas, I could forgive it. However, he doubles down on it. In a separate interview with Collider, he reiterated his belief that Anakin blew up the Death Star. When asked about his character reckons with the idea that bad and good are just in the eyes of the beholder, Burnett answered that part. In my mind, it's so funny because it literally, as a person who's outside and just a fan coming in, that was so beautiful and interesting to me. He continued, people have been talking to me online about how Darth Vader is such a bad person. It's very clear, and it's very well established from those actions. But if you can't look and see that Anakin blowing up the Star Wars killed millions and millions of people, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that right now. After Daphne Keene tells him to shut up, he continues, "Is the beauty of the story, and it's the beauty of like life. It's not about no holding people to the fire when they do make the wrong decisions or when they are bad, but recognizing why they led to the places that they led is important. I think it's why Lucas wrote it." Yeah, this guy's a moron. you know, I'm always so baffled. These actors, they're always like, "Hey, we're just like you. We've got this certain level of common sense and blah blah blah. I'm Jenny from the block, right?" No, they're just morons who happen to stumble into an acting class and someone said, "Hey, you're brilliant, kid. You should be in this movie." That's what it is. Either that or it's nepotism, like James Gunn continually to cast his brother in films. It's just absolute mind blowing that actors and actresses get away with so much and we let them. And now that rot, that idea that good versus evil is just in the eye of the beholder, that is Disney, right? That's why there's not a villain in Moana or Frozen 2 or Raya and the Last Dragon. It's all about feelings and how someone perceives the good and evil. No, there is objective good and there is objective evil. Star Wars knows that. And that's why the first 6 films, as well as Rogue One, I would put Rogue One in this, understand that. There are so many ways that this could have gone right, but they chose Harvey Weinstein, his former assistant, Leslie Headland, to be the showrunner for this series, which there have been long been rumors that they had to cobble it together because Headland had actually just produced one episode and blew all the budget on the pilot, and as a result of that, it kind of was more of a proof of concept, and so they had to scramble to finish it and to get it together. That's why there was so many delays and trailers and cast announcements and things like that. And now I don't know if that's true or not. Clearly, that's a rumor, but you can just see that they are taking Star Wars and just soaking it, and we used in the same nonsense that ruined the CW. But a lot of people don't remember this. I grew up with, because the CW was the merger of 2 different TV networks. And prior to that, the CW was called the WB. When it was the WB, it was a fantastic channel. Some of the shows were a little soap opera-ish, you had Gilmore Girls and Seventh Heaven in there, but you would watch the WB. Now the CW, it's just kind of a joke, kind of like Netflix films, how they canceled Mindhunters, but they keep making those dumb kissing booth and tall girl movies. I'm sorry, tall girl, but just because you're tall doesn't mean you have the same kind of problems that I have. It's not the same thing. I hate to break it to you. If anything, you have an athletic advantage over a lot of your fellow students. Get over your height. But anyway, but it doesn't end there. This is according to Bounding into Comics. Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy says she told the Acolyte creator, "You've written a great Star Wars show, now go write a Leslie Headland show." Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy has revealed that in an effort to help breathe new life into the all but completely dead franchise, she directly advised the Acolyte creator and showrunner Leslie Headland to make the upcoming Star Wars series uniquely hers. Recalling her previous discussions with Headland, the Lucasfilm boss told Barnes that after reading early drafts of the series script in 2019, she replied to the showrunner's work with a declaration, "You've written a great Star Wars show. Now go write a Leslie Headland show." You know what that tells me? That tells me that Kathleen Kennedy knows the series is garbage and that she is setting Leslie Headland up for a fall. And that's not just me. I've heard Midnight's Edge say this as well. Yellow Flash has also put forth this theory. I agree with them. And if anything, I've not seen the show yet. I do plan on watching it, like I said, to review it. But Alan, no, I think is his name, from Film Threat, he saw the first 3 episodes and he outright said the 3rd episode kills the franchise. It's even worse than The Last Jedi. And that blows my mind. What could be worse than The Last Jedi or Obi-Wan, where 2 amazing heroes in the form of Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, how they are these great Jedi masters, but then they're turned into sad sacks who have to be bossed around by girl bosses. And in the case of Obi-Wan Kenobi, a little girl boss. Absolutely ruinous. And you can tell that they're just setting everything up to blame the failure on fans. Now, listen, Star Wars fans can be fickle. We are easy to please, which is something else Midnight's Edge produced. We want a solid action sci-fi story with compelling themes, compelling characters, and a compelling plot. We have gotten none of that sans the first two seasons of The Mandalorian and Rogue One and Andor. But since Disney has bought Star Wars, their successes have been smaller and smaller and smaller over time. And it's just so sad to watch this one great sci-fi epic series come to rot, and now they're setting up to blame the fans for the Acolyte's failure. Again, this is bounding into comics. Lucas boss Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy defends the Acolyte, says Star Wars female cast and crew face unfair criticisms because of the fan base being so male dominated. And I'm scrolling down to where her quote is, and this is it. The Disney exec excerpted, "My belief is that storytelling does need to be representative of all people. That's an easy decision for me. Operating within these giant franchises now, with social media and the level of expectation, it's terrifying." Kennedy then asserted, pushing back against the series' press pre-release critics. "I think showrunner Leslie Headland has struggled a bit with it. I think a lot of women who step into Star Wars struggle with it a bit more because of the fan base being so male dominated. They sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal." Weighing in on the topic herself, Headland separately opined to Barnes, "As a fan myself, I know how frustrating some Star Wars storytelling in the past has been. I felt it myself. I stand by my empathy for Star Wars fans, but I want to be clear. Anyone who engages in bigotry, racism, or hate speech, I do not consider a fan." This is what they're doing. They know it's going to end there's going to end the series. This is going to destroy Lucasfilm. They have stripped mined Lucasfilm. They've destroyed Indiana Jones. They've destroyed Willow. They destroyed Star Wars. And Star Wars hung on because of its brand recognition. But now, even just people who just are curious, who saw Star Wars, but they're not into the lore like someone like I am, they're even tired of it. Because they did the same thing with so many of their other shows. They just want to blame the fans. I remember Ewan McGregor, who is a good actor. This isn't a statement about his talent, but him shooting that video while he was driving, which is illegal, by the way. But he's like, "I don't consider you a Star Wars fan." Like, go back to England, shut up and act. I don't need to hear it from you, whatever. For one thing, the criticism of the show is not that they cast a woman of color in a role or a man of color in a role. It's the fact that it sucks. It's terrible. It's bad. The Book of Boba Fett could have been this really good, almost Breaking Bad type Star Wars show, but they made it so vanilla and boring and put Vespas in it for some reason. You just yawned through it. And it's the same with Mandalorian season 3. In a previous video, I said Mandalorian had 4 seasons. That was my bad. I apologize. I misquoted, or I was misquoting. Same with that. They toned it down so much. They put all this wacky humor in it that you could really tell that Jon Favreau lost control of that at that point. Dave Filoni backstabbed him so hard, and it's so sad to watch. Star Wars Vision season 2, right? Star Wars Vision, they brought Star Wars to anime studios, and it was such a relief. It felt like old Star Wars again, even the shorter episodes that were for children. And then season 2, they got to ruin it again. They just got to ruin that brand recognition of Star Wars Vision because they saw how people were liking what Mappa was doing more than Disney, and so they got jealous. So they had to end their relationship with those anime studios and instead turn to a bunch of other random European studios that no one cares about. And it wasn't. And by the way, I'm sure they did a good job, whatever. But that should not have been Star Wars Visions. They should have used that for their Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire series. That would have made so much more sense. But no, they don't want to listen to us. They don't care. The fact that they changed Star Wars Vision from an anime centric show just shows how much they despise fans. It was something that the fans really engaged with. Even Overlord DVD just praised the pilot for Star Wars Visions. So, but then they saw that and they had to say no. And what's interesting is George Lucas, he was doing an interview at the Cannes Film Fest. He even chimed in on this. This is according to Fandom Pulse. Same thing as it is now, he remarked. What happens now, and it happens in streaming, probably more than features, but features, it's the same thing. Nobody knows what to do. The stories they're telling are just old movies. Let's do a sequel. Let's do another version of this movie. And it's not just movies, but it's almost everything. There's almost no original thinking. And continuing on down the article, he says, it's like I saw something, let's do something like that. It's also a way that old movies that movies are sold. If you go in and say, I've got something that you've never seen before and you don't understand it, it's a very hard to get a deal. His frustration is evident in his assessment of the industry's reluctance to embrace new ideas. Instead, Hollywood seems to favor the safe bet of rehashing familiar stories and concepts. Although Lucas has distanced himself from active involvement in the Star Wars franchise since selling Lucasfilm to Disney in 2012 for over $4 billion, he keeps an eye on its evolution. He has some harsh words about the direction that Disney has taken with his creation. I was the only one who really knew what Star Wars was, who actually knew this world, because there's a lot to it. The Force, for example, no one understood the Force, Lucas said. When they started other ones after I sold the company, a lot of the ideas that were in the original sort of got lost. But that's the way it is. You give it up, you give it up. I find it interesting because previously he had said that he had felt like he sold Star Wars to white slavers. He called Star Wars his child that he had sold to white slavers. And then he backs Iger in the proxy fight against Nelson Peltz, which I still think he did that because he's getting some sort of deal from it. But then now he's complaining about it again. Lucas, why did you back Iger then? The Disney CEO Bob Iger. He betrayed you. He backstabbed you, and you sided with Peltz just to get a shot at a TV show or to help Jon Favreau make the Mandalorian movie. Come on, man. You know, I respect George Lucas, and I think the fans were terrible to him over the prequels. I love the prequels. I think they're fantastic films. No, they're not better than the original trilogy, but they're still good. They're still great, in fact. Yes, I said it. Just because some weirdos on the internet who watched the trailer and then reviewed the movie for 2 hours for some reason and contradict themselves in the first 20 minutes of their review, just because they told Star Wars fans not to like it, Star Wars fans didn't like it. And it's disappointing that happened. But if George Lucas had just hung on and continued to make great films, if he had done the sequel trilogy, I do think it would be better than any of the slop that Disney has done with this franchise. Now, so where do we go from here, guys and gals? If Disney Star Wars does end with the third episode of The Acolyte, as film threats suggest, it's time to look for other franchises. There are other ones out there. There are books, there are movies, there's anime, there's television. There's so much out there. Try to find Andromeda, what's starring Kevin Sorbo, although that might be more analogous to Star Trek, to be fair. Point is, check it out. There are other things out there that you can get into, that you can get involved in. And it hurts, and I hate to say that, but as far as I'm concerned, buy the old Star Wars books, buy the old Dark Horse comics, or even the Marvel comics from before Disney owned Marvel. Buy those ones. Buy the DVDs. Try to track down the VHSs if you can, because that's the only way we're going to be able to keep this franchise alive. Wow, that was a little bit of a downer. Sorry about that, but that's just the way it is right now. But if you did like this video, be sure to like it, leave me a comment on what you think, share it out to all your friends, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications anytime there's a new video. And of course, consider becoming a channel member. You get all kinds of perks. And once a week, I do a members first look ahead of the release of the actual video. It's random days, so you got to keep a lookout for it, but become a channel member so you can spot it. I'm also planning on doing live streams, and you get a ton of other perks as well. If you don't want to support me on Big Tech, you're watching me on Rumble, Odyssey, or BitChute, click on the link to my locals community. It's in the description. It's how you can support indie creators like myself. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on StudioJake.
I've been living life